Do you need this, Mrs. Kemp?
Having devoted a considerable amount of time to one of my favorite Fellini films, I think I'm ready to slum a bit on the opposite end of the spectrum. Allow me to introduce you to a film that in terms of aesthetics and story has very few redeeming qualities. A film that at this writing has less than 3 out of 10 stars on IMDb, and a freshness score of 8% on Rotten Tomatoes. It has been panned almost universally by critics and ranked as one of the worst movies of all time, with its young star earning a Golden Razzie as Worst Newcomer of the Year. Of course, I'm talking about the 1991 soft-pedal rap vehicle Cool as Ice, starring then 19-year-old Vanilla Ice. Now, before we enter the Laughing House and lock the doors for the night, it wouldn't be a Movie Mattness review without a little backstory. In 1985, a 16-year-old street dancer and aspiring rapper named Robert Van Winkle, aka Vanilla Ice, was already opening for some of the biggest hip-hop artists of all time, from Public Enemy to Two Live Crew to MC Hammer. After purchasing studio time and recording numerous tracks for his demo tapes, Vanilla Ice broke through in 1989 with his debut album Hooked, featuring his 2 smash hits Play That Funky Music and Ice Ice Baby. After signing with SBK Records, Hooked was later re-recorded as To the Extreme and re-released in 1990. To the Extreme became the fastest-selling hip-hop album of all time, spending 16 weeks on the charts, peaking at number 1 on the Billboard Top 200 and selling 11 million copies. In an effort to capitalize on their new cash cow, SBK saturated the public with Vanilla Ice, sending him on tour with MC Hammer, releasing a 12-inch Vanilla Ice doll, and attempting to sell Ice as a hot motion picture commodity with an appearance in the second Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie and the featured role in Cool as Ice, a rough star vehicle in development in 1991. Cool as Ice was the first feature film of director David Kellogg, whose only other credits at the time were music videos, TV commercials, and a number of Playboy video calendars. But the director of photography was Janusz Kaminski, the brilliant eye who would go on to serve as Steven Spielberg's go-to DP for such masterpieces as Schindler's List and Saving Private Ryan. So what you have is a beautifully photographed concatenation of flashy, colorful set pieces. In essence, a 91-minute commercial for the product known as Vanilla Ice, lovingly shot by the man who gave us The Girl in the Red Coat and The Invasion of Normandy. For the love of God, see this movie! In the film, Vanilla Ice plays Johnny, an Anglo-hip-hop circus clown leading his small African-American posse on a tour of the amber waves of grain like a bunch of ninja-riding Bedouins. In a remote village right out of a flyover state, Johnny falls for Kathy, played by Kristen Minter, a straight-laced honor student whose love of horses is so great that she earns a feature story on the national news. Along for the ride are Michael Gross from TV's Family Ties as Kathy's father, Candy Clark, whose acting resume includes American Graffiti and The Man Who Fell to Earth, as Kathy's mother, former off-Broadway hoofer and comedian Dodie Goodman, most well known for her cameo in the Grease movies as eccentric neighbor May, and Sidney Lassick, aka Mr. Cheswick from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, as May's husband Roscoe. You want to heap weirdness on top of weirdness? The part of Kathy was originally offered to future Academy Award winner Gwyneth Paltrow, but her father would not allow her to take the part because of the script's sexual content. For the love of God, see this movie. Speaking of script, the film's sole writing credit goes to David Sten, a television writer whose credits at the time included Hill Street Blues, 21 Jump Street, and Beverly Hills 90210. Cool as Ice bears only a passing resemblance to those shows, and does not seem to have sprung from the same brilliant mind who would later go on to direct the haunting documentary Girl 27. According to a recent interview with Vanilla Ice himself, there really wasn't a formal script, and many scenes were improvised based on the Ice Ice Baby persona he brought to the shoot. As such, the film's story falls together in a patchwork fashion like a quilt, which is kind of coincidental since Janusz Kaminski was DP on How to Make an American Quilt. The story of Cool as Ice has the logic of a school play written by a 5th grader. Johnny and his posse wrap their way across America on expensive-looking motorbikes, yet they seem to have no visible means of income. Are they a band? Then where are their roadies and equipment? They arrive in a white picket fence small town inspiring slack-jawed stares from the locals. But in the middle of the community is the home of Roscoe and May, a wacky shack funhouse right out of Salvador Dali's dream sequence in Alfred Hitchcock's Spellbound. Johnny first sees Kathy on her horse and initiates a meet-cute by terrifying the horse with his motorbike so that it bucks Kathy off, a dangerous and potentially fatal come-on if there ever was one. But the next morning, when she wakes up and finds him in her room, she doesn't scream or call the police. And how convenient is it that Roscoe and May's funhouse is just across the street from Kathy's parents, and that Johnny and his posse end up staying there while Roscoe does repairs on one of their bikes? How weird is it that Kathy's family is in witness protection, and that when the local news does a story on Kathy's love of horses, it is seen by corrupt cops who are looking for them? Either these corrupt cops live in the same small town, which doesn't make sense, or Kathy's news story is broadcast nationally, which really doesn't make sense. How twisted is it that Kathy is a prudish honor student and a virgin, but when Vanilla Ice performs at a local hangout and invites her onto the dance floor, it turns into the erotica dance number from All That Jazz? The list of weirdness goes on, sucking the viewer deeper and deeper into the insanity that is Cool as Ice. This film is a mess, a cross between Rebel Without a Cause, Footloose, and the Sugar Hill Gang, all hurled against the blank canvas with less calculation than a Jackson Pollock painting. So why do I love it? Well, I admit, in the early 1990s, when the first incarnation of Vanilla Ice was at its zenith, I hated the guy. He struck me as little more than an overdressed pretty boy who couldn't string a decent hip-hop tune together without pilfering riffs from some of my favorite songs from high school. I rented Cool as Ice as a joke, something my friends and I could watch while wasted and talk back to the screen like a frat boy version of MST3K. But then something crazy happened while viewing this magnum opus. Vanilla Ice grew on me. Sure, the film is silly and ignorant, but despite Ice's hip-hop posturing and Bon mots worthy of Roger Moore as James Bond, the guy plays it as straight as he can and pours his heart into the role. Vanilla Ice has a decent screen presence, and his lack of real chemistry with anyone else in the cast is a testament to how outside the box his persona really is. Sure, the guy looks like a refugee from Fellini Satyricon. That's probably why he's able to get away with some of the creepy things Johnny does, like stalk Kathy, steal her organizer, and break into her house to watch her sleep. Remake this movie with another white rapper, Eminem, and it would turn into a horror movie. Vanilla Ice almost seems oblivious to the stupidity of the film he is in, but on further review he is clearly self-aware and perhaps even embracing the outrageousness. Like his character Johnny, he truly does not care what you think, and that makes him all the more appealing. Plus, the 3 tracks he performs live in the film, Cool as Ice, The People's Choice, and Get With It, have more energy and passion than anything off of his chart-topping album To the Extreme. This might sound crazy coming from a guy who just reviewed 8.5, but Mad Matt says check out Cool as Ice. Sure, it's a bad movie, and that's kind of the point. It's not just awful, it's gloriously awful, and in between the multitudinous moments where you roll your eyes and snort in disbelief, you might just find yourself entertained. Again, I say check it out. See this movie. And if you really want to get the maximum enjoyment out of it, perhaps you should take some advice from Vanilla Ice himself.
Roll 'em up, roll up the hootie back, roll 'em up, roll 'em up, roll up the hootie back, roll 'em up.
All right, we've seen what you can do with a boy. How are you when they come a little bigger?